Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Namaste, hello everyone. Welcome again to my NPTEL course on interior design. Today we are at lecture number 36 and we are going to talk about transdisciplinary interventions and specifically focusing on craft design explorations. It's a very, very interesting topic and I am very fond of discussing craft design explorations. So, we are going to see how crafts have become extraordinary locus in the field of visual arts and design. We will see some case studies, and these are diverse typologies. So, there is a hospitality sector project. There are some examples from furniture and product design. There is an airport typology, and then there is this very famous Sommerfeld house, and there is a brief discussion on Bauhaus, and of course some references. So, when we say that the crafts have extraordinary locus in visual arts and design, it means that crafts have been the center of many socially driven initiatives. They are a part of very many important discussions, whether we talk about vernacular or we talk about contemporary design, whether we talk about elite or we talk about popular, whether it is about conservation, whether there is a discussion on materials, skills, technology. And when we're talking about culture, creative economy, tools and techniques, something to do with a global discourse or a worldview, movements like arts and crafts movement, fields like architecture, interior design. So, all of these have some or the other association with the word crafts in different capacities, in different scales, and in diverse formats. So, it is very, very interesting and crucial to see craft as enjoying extraordinary locus in the field of visual arts and design, and how they become a very, very important part of also interior architecture and interior design, which is the subject of our inquiry and discovery during this course. So, I'm giving some examples, and the examples that I'm going to discuss are actually some of the student works which are done as part of one of the elective courses that I conducted for IPSA Rajkot, which is a very popular school of architecture. I was invited by a dear friend, Riddhi Shah, and it was an eclectic studio which had students from different classes, from first year to final year. And I was very impressed by the works and the outcomes that have come up. This is slightly old. I conducted this in 2021. And despite discussions and, whatever corrections and revisions or modifications that were suggested, of course, due to shortage of time, not everything we were able to achieve within that short span of time. So there may be some, mistakes that you can sort of find out on the slides, or there may be a room for revision, etc. But I've put most of the works done by students as it is because I found it very, very rigorous. So we will try our best and we will discuss the craft design explorations taking these examples. I have talked about Ras Jodhpur a few times. It is designed by Studio Lotus. And here we are talking about interior architecture and crafts when we talk about the transdisciplinary explorations, when we talk about craft design explorations. And of course, when we try to decode the interior architecture of this identified project, we are also going to see it through the lens of space making elements and space making crafts. And we had elaborate discussion during lecture 13 and 14, where we did try to understand SME, SMC, and different case studies. So these are all works done by students, and they started with, first of all, explaining why did they select a particular case study and why it was important, especially when we talk about craft design exploration. So through that lens, why they had chosen that case study. So of course, this is a very, very interesting project. It oversaw restoration with the influence of old Havelis and nearby city houses and connected new building designs with the site's existing structures, with Mehrangarh Fort at the backdrop. So it's a beautiful site, and it is set in the heart of the walled city of Jodhpur, Rajasthan. It is a 1.5-acre property, and it has a very, very beautiful and very unique site and context. And there is a dialogue between the old and the new in the 18th century restored Haveli. And we several examples of stone we are able to see in this one. So Jodhpur's first boutique hotel, it's also designated like this. The 17th, 18th century structure is restored with traditional craftsmanship with original materials such as lime mortar and the Jodhpur sandstone. So local materials, locally sourced materials, local techniques, craftsmanship, traditional ways of making, trying to restore this glorious structure which is quite old, and then trying to have adaptive reuse in this kind of an existing structure. That is basically what this project is about, but I find it fascinating because of the details that have been achieved here in stone, plus also the student works and how they have analyzed this case study in terms of SME, SMC, and transdisciplinarity. So 70% of the materials and also the human resources, that is the people, the makers, they are employed here on site and they have been sourced locally within a 30-kilometer radius. That's very commendable. And the materials majorly include hand-cut stone poured in cement terrazzo on floors, walls, and furniture. There is also shisham, local Indian hardwood, which is used specifically in, handcrafted furniture. And then there is a central courtyard, and it shows the relationship of old and new buildings within the surrounding neighborhood. And it's open to sky, and it sets, a very beautiful interrelationship between different parts and different blocks within this building and its premise. So these were the kinds of inventories or analyses which were done by the student groups. And like I said, I found them very impressive. So I did discuss with them, the system of classification. What is space making element? What is space making craft? How are they integrated within space making? How do we see their profound role in interior spaces? And how do we classify them as structural or surface oriented and so on, like we had seen in some of the previous lectures. So they could identify space making elements within this entire project. And of course, the space making crafts such as stone carving, there is stone jali work, and more details related to stone. Like I said, some of the details may need, fine tuning and refinement, and I have put the works as it is. Nonetheless, the effort is quite commendable. So, what are the materials? And, within the space, what is the experience as a user? And then specifically some observations related to interiors and furniture. So it will be very difficult to discuss each inventory in detail, but I'm just trying to give the overview here. So continuing with the same analysis, they have documented furthermore, because this is a huge project and you could visually decode this in terms of several space making elements and space making crafts and details, even at the hardware level. So courtyard, floor, door, and what are the materials which are employed in creating these elements, and what are the crafts and skills and techniques that go hand in hand, which the makers, of course, bring to the table through their age old wisdom. And then what kinds of sensory experiences do they impart to the spaces which are used by residents or tourists or visitors, and specifically furniture and observations related to interiors, whether it's a space or surface or motif or color palette. And continuing with that detail, they also did discuss a bit the applications. So, what kinds of applications and what kinds of techniques are also seen while catering to some of these space making elements and employing these space making crafts and generating spaces. And very, very important, who are these makers? Who are these communities? And what do they do? So, whether they have migrated or they are local craftspersons and who work with stone or lime plastering, etc., those kinds of details were also documented and recorded by the students. Now, some groups could document the making part much better than the others, while the others could document the community part, or the craftsmanship part much more than the space making elements part, and so on. So it depended on what were the strengths of each group and what kind of analysis they could bring. So there were also these visual inventories, which are very, very interesting because it's like a sort of a visual directory where you are decoding this building or built form visually. And you're trying to tell what is the space making element, such as wall, what's the material that has been used for creating it, whether it's a masonry structure or an infill, is it structural or surface, is it a product or an object such as this mirror over here, or is it a furniture detail, is it in timber or stone, and what is the flooring like, is it tiled or is it some kind of another flooring, is it timber. And here also, if we see, so right here at the entrance, what kind of stone, what kind of space making element, structural brackets, arches, the spandrels of the arches. So, structurally integrated craft or structure based craft or surface integrated craft. So, I will refrain from that detailing because we had elaborate discussions on that. But this is sort of an application of that system or that kind of a classification which was created and developed by some of us, and it was explained thoroughly through examples. So we are just applying that. And these are the outcomes of one of the elective courses, like I explained, which was done with a few students. So again, these visual directories are also very powerful tools and media to understand interior architecture, interior design, the ways of making, material palette, color palette, makers, and the geographical interesting aspects as well as complexities of particular contexts where the projects are situated, and so on. So there are more details over here. And again, there is a sort of a visual directory along with a system of classification from an object to a furniture to a building level, and surface finish to a structure level detail, and even very interesting details such as what does this mirror do, which is placed over here. So it captures and deconstructs views of the fort and the old city, and it enhances the volume in that space immediately because there is a reflection and there is this world that opens up, looking at in this mirror. So even though you are sitting here, but you could see this skyline and that fort and the details over here. Even some details like relief carving in stone, and how do these niches lit up at night. So the students captured all of these through infographics, visual inventories, and their detailed analysis. More of the details. So there is this blue lime plaster, which is a surface finish. There is wooden furniture, which is handcrafted. There is lime plaster on the walls over here while you are taking this flight of steps. There are jali details. So there are details which are structural, or there are surface finishes and so on. So again, very, very interesting views. This is from the rooftop. And then also lighting and everything. We did talk about different kinds of lighting. So those details, if you try to connect the dots and relate, you will see lots of case studies, that understanding being reflected or demonstrated. So continuing with the inventory and the analysis and trying to understand the transdisciplinary explorations, especially focusing here on interior architecture and craft. So again, the arches, so the building element or the space making element, the material, the craft of stone carving, and here on the spandrel, is it surface integrated or is it structure based? We did discuss that in great detail. So here this is surface integrated. Bracket is of course a structural building element. And then what are the details associated with this building elements, and what are the space making crafts that are employed to create this frame, this canvas, this space, this part of the space, and so on. Again, details which focus on the flooring, also the light fixtures, whether it's metal or glass or some other kind of material. What kind of lighting is it? Is it mood lighting or task lighting? All those kinds of details you could put to use, what we have learned so far, and plus what we are going to also see, some more of it. So again here, jharoka, which is structurally integrated, there is jali, and the details which are done here in the locally sourced sandstone, which is red in color. So those kinds of details, so space making element, the material palette, the maker, the space making craft, the overall built form, and all of these being a part of an ecosystem. So, details like hand cut panels which are done on site, and, within a certain radius, the people and material being procured, again demonstrating ideas of sustainability and then creating livelihood and employment for the people. So, this also is very much a crucial part of craft design explorations, where we do talk about these ecosystems, we do talk about livelihood, we do talk about sustainability and circularity. So, yeah, also details, how do you reduce the weight of the stone slabs? And, how do you sort of create very interesting details which are like folding window jalis that you see on the facade. So they are punctured and they are in the form of a jali, so that reduces a bit of the weight already. But there is a very interesting hardware detail, there is a very interesting mechanism which is put together through the channels, and that's how that folding jali window, which is seen in this very famous project that was sort of implemented. So here we have like some of the pictures from the execution, site execution, and these are the details that I was talking about, the folding window jali, and which forms this entire opening. You can fold and unfold it. So stone is a heavy material. You try to reduce the weight because of the detailing that I was talking about. And then how through the metal reinforcement and channel and that mechanism, they are put together, and then the folding and unfolding happens. So it is particularly because of this detail that I find this project very interesting. And here we do talk about craft design explorations, designers working with craftspersons, very contemporary uh, building, at least this part, the new building, and how the element like stone jali is sort of reinvented, and this contemporary expression is achieved here, and this kind of a detail has been highlighted along with the local makers and local materials, local skills, tools, techniques. So that's a very, very interesting part of this project. Here, this one. So we do have, the age-old principles of passive cooling. We are trying to create a building which is in response to the climate and the local context. We are trying to create views to the beautiful site. But there is also this contemporary detailing and very interesting craftsmanship through which this kind of an entire assembly and structure is, achieved. And this texture, which is simply achieved by stripling, the karigar or the craft person just doing that stripling or stroking on the site and then creating these kinds of beautiful textured surfaces. So more details. Even this bed over here is in stone. So we see all the details and craftsmanship at an object slash product level, light fixture level. I'm calling it product design itself. Furniture, surfaces, also, of course, the entire structure of the building itself, and so on. This is how it looks at night. And of course, the lighting is accentuating the entire volume and the experience. And the traditional practice of lime plastering has been employed here, and that also needs very specific skills and knowledge. So even that is done, and the local community has helped achieve it, along with, of course, the knowledge which the designers have through their experience and education and everything. So the students also documented these traditional practices, and I really appreciated that they showcased the maker or the artisan, and they tried to document and highlight, refer to different sources, give them due credits, and make these inventories of ingredients, tools, techniques, traditional processes, how these processes are employed, and they are demonstrated here in this project. Even preparing lime mortar, how is it done, and not exactly on this site, but also taking cues and learnings from other sites and other sources and books, but in a similar manner how it is done here. So they try to collate all that information. So this is a traditional lime chakki. We see over here the wheel and how it was done traditionally. So even those kinds of methods, the intuitive knowledge, the knowledge of the maker, and this empirical knowledge which is transferred from one generation to another, and how it is applied in interior architecture projects. So all of that they were able to capture, and through each project or each building that they had identified, justifying that selection, and then continuing with all these inventories and decoding and analysis and these documentation methods for capturing the traditional ways, even their contemporary expressions. This entire mapping and presentation was very impressive. So again, continuing with the way it is done and all those details. Now there are some examples that focus on furniture or at a product level, and we are talking about that kind of a scale from building to product or furniture. And here we are talking about product design plus crafts when we talk about transdisciplinary exploration. And we could also put it as industrial design and crafts. So this is again a very, very interesting project. I really like it. I'm very fond of it, and I often show it during my classes. So this is done by a Mumbai-based studio. And what I find interesting here is how, again, there is this transdisciplinary exploration, and the wood makers or the carpenters, they get to work with embroiderers, or people who are from the textile background. So this is how they come together. And this is timber, which is drilled, and this kind of a grid or an armature is created, within these timber blocks. And then the embroidery or the yarn or, the stitching. So that kind of detailing is achieved taking this timber and this sort of a lattice armature as the base work. And this kind of a customized range of furniture is achieved. So I found it very fascinating, very interesting vocabulary, quite novel, unconventional, and exploring these transdisciplinary avenues, bringing different makers together, bringing designers and makers together, and then creating designs at different scales for different clientele and in a very customized manner. So it's quite unique, and they have their own unique selling points because the design is not mass produced or sort of randomly and easily available in the market. So, a very fascinating example, therefore. So, that was the furniture that you saw, and then the same exploration or similar exploration could also be seen indoors, could be a tabletop also, but these are doors, and I find them very interesting. So, again, there is timber, and then there is this yarn related or fabric related detail. These are more examples, and this is again, textiles and uh, metal. So, metal is a hard material, and this is a soft material. So, soft plus hard material explorations. And these are leftover from the textiles products or textile industry, which are known as katran in the local parlance. And with this metal frame or metal armature, and along with this katran, these kinds of designs could be explored. So, this is also a fascinating example, especially where we are talking about transdisciplinarity. More examples and media coverage for this project, which is quite reputed. And we see this also, this application in this resort, which is also designed by the same studio. So the product, the light fixture, the entire resort, its structure, its built form, all of these are designed in a cohesive manner, and the vocabulary sort of, showcases that. These are again the details from the same resort and by the same studio, could also be used in other projects, but they are also installed in the resort. So these are bangles, and these are again metal hangers, and they have been utilized to create certain light fixtures, and it's quite interesting and frugal. More details about light fixtures, and then again copper and timber coming together for side table or for, small tea table or a stool or just a corner, decorative furniture, anything you could use that for. So again, these are transdisciplinary also in terms of diverse material palettes coming together, diverse makers coming together, the copper workers and the timber workers, and so on. Here it is jute and metal. So again, material palette explorations, cross pollination of techniques, makers coming together, creating unique vocabulary which is not uh, sort of, available in the sense that it is mass produced, but there is high level of customization. Having said that, of course, there is a possibility of mass production here also. Depends what is the intention, what's the project, who is the clientele, and at what scale, is the design being done. This is another interesting example of transdisciplinary exploration, and I was actually involved in this small project, and which was conceived as series of workshops with craftspersons. This is Anil Bhai, the main maker. And this is the wood turning and lacquer craft of a place called Dholka near Ahmedabad. And basically, there are like small utilitarian objects or accessories that this community used to make. And SEPT wanted to do some interventions. And at School of Interior Design, we were trying to work with this community and come up with, value addition and new range of products, and specifically focusing on their applications in space making and not just as utilitarian objects. So, of course, developing rapport with the community, observing what they do, what are their typical products, why do they design, what are the ceremonial or ritualistic connotations, what is the functionality aspect, what is the materiality aspect, what kind of joinery, is there a glue or is it not glued, what is wood turning, and how is the lacquer prepared, wood turning and lacquer together, how do they, you know, help in achieving the results like what we see on the screen. So that was done, and traditionally, how it was done to what could be done now. So there was this partition screen which was designed, learning from the traditional ways of doing this craft and how it could be used for today's or contemporary or future explorations, what kinds of space making elements. Also, discussions like, since we are trying to reduce the use of timber, could we do the wood turning in bamboo? And then what were the challenges? Because the bamboo was hollow, so to how to turn it on that specific equipment or device. So, what was the mechanism that was employed? What kinds of joineries were achieved? So, it was a very rigorous work. I am trying to show only in a very overview manner over here. And these were the assembly drawings and all the details, how that partition screen was designed and developed, and what kinds of sections of wood starting from this small to this big were utilized, and this sort of a visual directory itself was created which displays all sorts of sections in wood that could be produced on that wood turner or the loom, and the results were achieved. So this is a sort of a visual directory itself, the size of the timber from this small to this big, and which could be produced on the lathe machine. The wood turning is done on the lathe machine, and then these are the sections that could be achieved. So in the sense, this partition screen is also a sort of a visual directory, that these are the possible sections, these are the possible colors which can be done by naturally occurring lacquer, and the way it is prepared traditionally by these makers. So very, very good learning experience for us who were a part of this workshop, series of workshops actually. This is another very interesting transdisciplinary exploration where the adaptation of original motifs is done on fabric through applique work. And these motifs are uh, from the Apan art of Uttarakhand. So they are traditionally done on, the wall, the floor, the threshold. But how are they done on fabric, and the product range is modified, and there are different products which are now available in the market and which have generated livelihood for these makers, or the women artisans who do apan, plus the people who work, with the fabric. So makers coming together again. This is another interesting project. It's called Dev Bhumi on Wheels, automobile design plus crafts. And this has been conceptualized by myself and my team. And we have focused on the Himalayan state of Uttarakhand. So it's a project initiative by Department of Design, IIT Roorkee. And focusing on the crafts of Uttarakhand, Devbhoomi on Wheels offers a unique and immersive experience of the crafts of Uttarakhand brought to life by the themed interiors of the bus which is designed by us. So, as you travel through the winding roads of Uttarakhand, you will have the opportunity to learn about the region's craft traditions and indigenous designs. So, you are sitting in this bus, you are traveling, and then it will unfold a lot of stories and lots of interesting details to all the travelers and onlookers. And you will return home with beautiful souvenirs and memories of the region's vibrant culture and warm hospitality. There is a project walkthrough that will help you understand what are the themed interiors and how is this bus designed with all the levels of details that I just mentioned.
Devbhoomi on Wheels is a project initiated by Department of Design, IIT Roorkee. Focusing on crafts of Uttarakhand, Devbhoomi on Wheels offers a unique and immersive experience of the crafts of Uttarakhand brought to life through the themed interior of the bus. As you travel through the winding roads of Uttarakhand, you will have the opportunity to learn about the region's craft traditions. You will return home with beautiful souvenirs and memories of the region's vibrant and culture and warm hospitality.
There's another project which is the Terminal T2 Mumbai, which talks about interior architecture and crafts. This is a very interesting project. So basically, some of us may already have visited the airport or, just been there for taking flights, etc. And this is a very, very interesting design because this was conceived as a mini India. There are a lot of people who come to the airport, but they are never able to go outside. They are coming here for business meetings or just for transition. So, how do you bring India to them? So, there was a massive art program which was involved as part of the conceptualization and design of this project. So there were teams for structural details, there were teams for art curation, there were teams for, overall construction details and the curation in terms of bringing mini India at one place. So even light fixtures that you were seeing, the inverted lotus were custom designed, and the columns inspired from the peacock feather, the kinds of details that we see in the interiors, the collages which showcase the jalis of India. Interesting and very, very famous artworks from India. So, this is Gond art that we see over here. And we see the furnishings, the rugs, the paisley motif, which is very, very synonymous to Indian designs, indigenous designs. And these kinds of screens, which have different stories, whether Bollywood or art of India or some kind of a mythological narrative, one would see all of those, once you're inside the terminal. Also, details like this, the lounges, which are not typically of glass but exploring the material copper, and again, interesting rugs and carpet details and custom made, light fixtures and furniture. So, very, very interesting, rich, and unique designs that we see here. Here also there is a video. This is by GVK Groups, and this would give you a lot of understanding of what I was trying to explain and why I am calling it a very breakthrough example of transdisciplinary explorations, combining craft design, architecture, and creating a unique space and identity.
All men dream, but not equally. Those who dream by night, in the recesses of their minds, wake in the day to find that it was just an illusion. But the dreamers of the day are dangerous, for they act on their dreams with open eyes and make them possible. This is the story of a dream that became real.
We at GVK believe whatever we are building in an infrastructure, we are building the nation. When we got in the competitive bidding the Mumbai International Airport, it was felt that this is the most difficult project to conceive. This terminal is the greatest example an Indian company can achieve such standards, and we can compare ourselves in any part of the world. All these iconic structures, they are permanent forever for the people of Maharashtra and city of Mumbai. That's why I take the pride to say our dream is to build the nation.
It was a challenging dream indeed. Few realize that the Mumbai airport is one of the most constrained airports in the world. Situated in the heart of a bustling metropolis, it severely lacks one key element of every major airport: land. Our task was daunting. We had to create a whole new megastructure, even as we rebuilt runways, taxiways, and aprons. And all this had to be accomplished, ensuring minimal interference to passengers. Never before had a project of this complexity been attempted. The Mumbai airport bears the name of a legend, Chhatrapati Shivaji. While it was an honor to take the legacy of the iconic leader forward, it was also a great responsibility. We were no longer seeking inspiration from global benchmarks. We were going to create our own. Experience said it was impossible, and reason said it was reckless. Yet, we chose to dream. After all, we were in Mumbai, the city of dreams. A city that has always placed on its highest pedestal the will to seek the impossible. And so, our dream took shape. It was ambitious and grand by any stretch of imagination. But it had to be. For it was a dream inspired by the spirit of India. An India that stands at the crossroads of time, reveling in the promise of the future and yet rooted in tradition. We imagined not just an airport, but an architectural feat that would give voice to the aspirations of a nation. The airport had to do more than just inspire awe. It had to make a quiet but compelling statement.
I always had this burning desire to showcase to the world something which is very close to my heart: the beauty of Indian art and design. When GVK won the Mumbai airport bid, I had the opportunity to realize this dream. However, it was quite a struggle because there was no benchmark to follow anywhere in the world. I started off with the idea of using the peacock feather as the T2 design inspiration. And art from across the length and breadth of the country as its jewelry. Even though Mumbai Airport had huge constraints, we reached for the stars with a vision to make Mumbai Airport one of the best in the world, which will make Mumbai proud. This was not just any other project for us. This was truly a labor of love.
It is an emotion that will be shared and experienced by every visitor to the new terminal. While the emotion is articulated in many ways, none is as novel as Jaya Hai, a unique initiative that celebrates the diversity of Indian art. Like our anthem, Jaya Hay eulogizes the essence of India through her art and culture. Showcasing treasures sourced from across the country, Jaya Hay is one of the world's largest art programs in the public realm. In the timeless art of India, the modern design of the new integrated terminal T2 finds its soul. T2 at Chhatrapati Shivaji International Airport heralds a new era for Mumbai. As a catalyst of change, it will inspire other developments and allow us all to believe that in our greatest challenge, we find our greatest opportunity. With great humility and pride, GVK presents its dream to the city of dreams.
This is another project, Sommerfeld House, and this is example of interior architecture and crafts, furniture and crafts, products and crafts. And this exemplifies the ideology of Bauhaus, which is a very famous German school of art. And it talks about, this ecosystem that we were, discussing. Different kinds of makers, different kinds of material palettes, different kinds of designers, different kinds of people coming together and then creating a sort of the entire project. So this case study was selected by the students to understand the modern principles of Bauhaus. And this house is one of the most iconic examples of the Bauhaus ideology of unified artistic expression. That is what I meant when I talked about that ecosystem. And Walter Gropius, very famous Gropius, used this opportunity to bring together all the workshops of the Bauhaus school in a very comprehensive design process. This period was the beginning of the new craft that resembled a modern and minimalistic approach. And this is how it looks like, very sleek and very, very nicely composed. And the details about the client, the typology and the style that it represented, and the material palette. And here also in this project, I was very impressed by the analysis done by the students and the sort of visual directories and inventories they were able to develop based on the discussion and the orientation that I gave them. So there is a little bit of discussion, of course, on how this entire project was conceived, and that Sommerfeld was a timber entrepreneur and a contractor, and he brought that knowledge to use. He already had a company. There was a patented way of construction that his company already did. So it was perhaps not instantly recognizable as a work by the architectural avant-garde of the period, but nonetheless, there was this knowledge of timber and the patented way of construction that was put greatly to use. And then also the Bauhaus ideology that you will see, specifically when I show you the doors, the interiors, and the way they were put together. The way the form, color, and geometry is showcased through those elements. So like I was saying, Sommerfeld's own construction company, they had this block building method which they were able to put to use while putting this house together. And the interesting thing is that, the owner's occupation is reflected through the design of this building, because of course he had this interesting inclination towards timber, and there was an occupation related to the material, and there was a certain knowledge which was put to use. So this is interesting because we are talking about the ideology of Bauhaus, which is demonstrated through this example. And it's very interesting to actually talk about this ideology, especially when we talk about interior design. So the Bauhaus aimed to reunite fine art and functional design, creating practical objects with the soul of artworks. There was a profound use of primary colors and shapes and forms, which expressed the simplistic ideology of the Bauhaus, and they believed in form follows function. So here we see the power of color and form, the primary colors used, and we see a square, a circle, and a triangle, and these bright primary colors, which were profoundly used as part of the Bauhaus school. And the Bauhaus school emphasized a strong understanding of basic design, especially principles of composition, color theory, and craftsmanship in a wide array of disciplines. So it was a very interesting school because they did not put, silos, they did not create silos, and they believed in a wide array of disciplines and learning from all of them, and then putting a unified understanding in a cohesive manner while creating a project. So that was the kind of ideology and understanding. So the Sommerfeld House was the first collective Bauhaus project on a large scale, and it did sort of demonstrate the unity of all arts that we were just talking about. And we can see a lot of demonstration, of this ideology, whether we talk about its built form and structure, and we see, this kind of decoding of this entire elevation or view, where we see a banded base, we see a horizontal composition, and we see this eave and its dramatic shadow. So this house was inspired by the forms of Vasily Kandinsky and FLW's works, and there is a lot of understanding of geometry, shapes, form, and material aspects over here. So the horizontal composition of the deep eaves was inspired from prairie type houses, which are typically characterized by horizontal lines, flat or shallow roofs, and large windows. So there is use of wood as the main building material, and it lends it a traditional rustic look. And also, like I told, that there was a patented construction system that Sommerfeld already was utilizing, and that was also sort of incorporated in the making of this house. So it was erected quite quickly, and basically there is this interlocking wood wall between different wooden floors, which was used as part of, the system of making or system of construction, and that's how it was erected quite quickly, and the entire composition came together. So these were the inventories specifically which were developed by the students, and why I was interested to showcase this example as part of our discussion today. So basically the stakeholders, the designers, the makers, the participants, what are the different space making elements where we saw these makers or stakeholders or designers come together, and what are the material which are utilized, whether it's a glass window or a timber door, and what is the kind of detailing over here. Can we extract geometrical shapes and details when we talk about each space making element, and how probably they were sort of put together or made. So this was an interesting classification. So whether it's an element like this stair, which is again timber, and we see this very interesting detail over here. Here also in the curtains and the screen, we see some kind of interesting lines and geometry and shapes and forms. We see wooden carving, we see, the weaving patterns, we see different kinds of fishnet weaving patterns, and how are these elements put together, along with, integration of these kinds of details of colors, motifs, patterns, and the makers and designers coming together, or designers learning from the makers and doing these works in the workshops, hands-on, touching the material and, knowing the technique of how it is done. So this entire, application of unified arts and details being brought together in a cohesive manner is what this project is about, why I find it very interesting. Again, Marcel Breuer, very, very famous. There are so many designs of Breuer that we still talk about, especially, here we see these examples of the armchair and tea table that are seen in this house. So, this is the Bauhaus Joinery Workshop, which is handled by Breuer, and, the designs being worked here. So, that kind of a system, where there are workshops, there are materials, people working together, creating ecosystem, bringing all arts and artists together and putting these details in a very cohesive manner to create this overall large scale project. So that kind of classification is inventorized by the students here through this example. Also the space making elements. So what are the space making elements that are seen here? And then each space making element, as they sort of decoded, and I showed the last few slides, what are the material palettes and details that go on each one of these. More. Of course, we see here only till 6. There is flooring, roof and wall junctions also. And then further classifying SME and SMC. Again at structural level or surface level and so on. So like here there is this timber cladding. Here we see cantilevered joist and beam. So core structure based. So structure based, surface finish, surface cladding, structure integrated, different kinds of details, different space making elements, materials like stained glass, timber, fabrics, and so on. So this is a sort of a diverse palette, and this one project itself can help create so much understanding about interior design, composition, basic design, space making elements, space making crafts, attributes of materiality, workmanship. God is in the details, putting things together. All of that one could really understand just studying in detail this one project. Also the spatial organization and those kinds of details the students had presented during the final jury. Again now, because we are talking about Bauhaus and Gropius, so in the words of Gropius, art is self-creation, not imitation. So a lot of interesting details could be done through customization, through unique vocabulary of design, by bringing arts together in a unified manner and trying to explore these transdisciplinary avenues like the few of which we saw today. Next lecture, we are going to continue with the transdisciplinary interventions, specifically focusing on craft design explorations. And I'll show you some more examples like we saw today. Some of the references. Thank you. I'll see you next time.